As a vice chair of the DNC, I'm required to stay neutral in Democratic primaries, but I cannot remain neutral any longer. The stakes are just too high. That's why today I'm endorsing Senator Bernie Sanders to be our next president and commander-in-chief of the United States. We need a commander-in-chief who has foresight, who exercises good judgment, and who understands the need for a robust foreign policy which defends the safety and security of the American people, and who will not waste precious lives and money on interventionist wars of regime change. Such counterproductive wars undermine our national security and economic prosperity. As these elections continue across the country, the American people are faced with a very clear choice. We can elect a president who will lead us into more interventionist wars of regime change, or we can elect a president who will usher in a new era of peace and prosperity. It's with this clear choice in mind that I'm resigning as vice chair of the DNC so that I can strongly support Bernie Sanders as the Democratic nominee for President of the United States. And now I ask you, stand with me and support Bernie Sanders.
That was the former vice chair of the DNC, Tulsi Gabbard, stepping down from a position of power. I've said this many, many times, the difference between a politician and a leader, because I consider Tulsi to be a leader, because as I've said before and I'm saying now, a politician will sacrifice their principles for power. A leader will sacrifice their power for principles. And by stepping down as vice chair of the DNC, Tulsi Gabbard sacrificed tremendous power for her principles. So you would think that Bernard Sanders would have a little bit of gratitude. Maybe just a little bit of gratitude. I don't know. It's hard to say. Well, what Washington does to people. First, I want to say this. This was never meant to be a political podcast. This was me wanting to blather my stories. I was an innocent 16-year-old shelving books in the public library, and 5 years later, I was indicted and sent to prison. And the story of that transformation is quite a story, and how I survived prison is quite a story too. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff. I wanted to expose scammers, and I wanted to tell stories about. Well, I have a great story somewhere deep in my channel about 7 rules for boomers who want to do edibles. But it just seems that I can't get away from politics. I just can't. And it's kind of like this.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Huh? And that's what's happening now. There's just too much going on in the world. Way too much going on in the world. Way too much going on in this country. Way too much happening everywhere around us. And relationships, friendships are being destroyed over partisan politics. And that's just absurd. It's just really, really so sad to see. I'm going to get to a Facebook post in a minute by a fellow OG Tulsi supporter. But I want to stay with Bernard for a few minutes here. Because believe it or not, or maybe obviously, when it came time for to vote for or against Tulsi I believe at cloture, whatever that is, but apparently it was the vote so that it can go to the full Senate for a vote. In any case, Bernard Sanders voted against Tulsi Gabbard. And let's get some reaction to that, including my own. Yeah, so first I couldn't believe it. I saw this post from Donna, and she said, Donna, not just an OG Tulsi supporter. Donna was very, very active in the campaign back in New Hampshire. I had the pleasure of meeting her back when, literally 5 years ago today, we went back there for the midnight voting at Hart's location, the first ballots in the 2020 primary. Anyway, Donna, I noticed Donna posted, Senator Sanders voted no on Tulsi Gabbard today. I can't believe it. Tulsi had your back, and you couldn't have hers. Unforgivable Bernie, please change your party affiliation to Democrats. I'm sorry I supported you. This no on Tulsi hurts. And there was reaction. I'm going to get to my own in a minute. Don, I'm sorry this hurts, but to be honest, I expected it. Bernie's just another run-of-the-mill, bought and paid for politician. And peace-loving independence says, honestly, it didn't surprise me at all. Bernie got a lot of mileage out of claiming to be independent, and he turned his back on Tulsi a long time ago. I supported him wholeheartedly in 2016. He was the first candidate I ever donated to, but once I saw his true colors, I lost respect for him. While Tulsi has changed parties, she has remained true to her values. And that's very, very important. People are kind of freaking out because, oh, she's a Republican now. She hasn't changed. Tulsi hasn't changed. Yeah, she changed party, but she didn't change principles. She is still the same Tulsi she's ever been. And now she's up for a position of importance in the government. And I think that that's, her being confirmed is very, very important. But staying on Bernard, this was my answer to that. I've been saying for a long time that the I next to Bernard's name is one of the biggest lies in D.C. As a diehard independent myself, I find Bernard's faux independence to be utterly reprehensible. The $27 I sent him in 2016 is embarrassment, as is Bernard. And the fact of the matter is, remember that? Remember Bernie's like, I don't take PAC money. I'm not going to try to imitate the guy. I can't. I need some marbles in my mouth. Whatever. It's not about how he talks. It's about what he says. And he makes this big thing about he doesn't take PAC money. So send $27 to Bernie Sanders, and thousands, maybe millions of us sent that. I wrote a $27 check, but I was disheartened to find out that money went through an organization called Act Blue. Now, my $27 is not going to change my life. It buy me a few cheeseburgers, whatever. But I never intended to support the Democrat Party, especially after what they did to Bernie in 2016, which was the beginning of my awakening about the Democrats, who I'd supported for decades before that. I didn't want my money going to Act Blue. I didn't want my money going to this any blue will do crap. So it's a pretty ugly situation. It's hard to believe that Bernie really went and did that. But it doesn't surprise me. And again, the math. Think about the math. I was raised to believe that 50 is a bigger number than 48. Do you agree? Do you think 50 is a bigger number than 48? Well, if you do, consider this. The Senate makeup just a few years ago was 50 Republicans, 48 Democrats, and 2 independents. And yet, Kamala Harris cast the tie-breaking vote, thereby giving the Democrats a majority. Now, how in the hell did the Democrats have a majority if there were more Republicans than Democrats in the Senate? That I remember they used to talk about the new math. Is that the new math? I guess that's the new math. So, but on a more serious note, the other independent I can't speak for, but Bernie made a big deal about being independent. He won the hearts and the $27 apiece of many of us because he won a Senate seat without a major party endorsement. Or did he have a major party endorsement? Who knows? But the fact of the matter is, if you have that capital I in parentheses next to your name, you're supposed to be an independent. And therefore, with 2 independents, 50 Republicans, 48 Democrats, the Republicans should have had a majority in the Senate. But Bernard Sanders and I think some Angus guy from Maine, whoever it is, I don't know about the other independent, but shame on you, Bernard. Shame on you. Shame on you. I am done with you, and a lot of us are done with you, and it's not a moment too soon. Anyway, while we're on the topic sort of adjacent to Tulsi, I want to read something that, ironically, from Facebook of all places, which is a place I've learned my lesson. I don't post political on Facebook. I really don't. But a fellow OG Tulsi supporter, Josh Harvey, made a post that I really, really liked, and I would like to share that with you, and I hope Josh doesn't mind me sharing the words that he has posted publicly. And let me, I know it might be a little small on your screen, so I'm going to read it to you. Because this relates to a lot of things that a lot of us are going through. People that we're close to disagreeing with us politically and in some cases very emotionally. Anyway, in the words of Josh Harvey, I was recently asked by some Democrat voting members of my family how I could support what President Trump is doing, including shutting down so many government agencies, firing people, etc. So I tried to explain to them that it's because of my disdain and distrust of our government that myself, along with the majority of Americans, many of whom were former Democrats, I might add, including Tulsi, Bobby, and Elon Musk, voted and support Trump because, as promised, he is empowering them to help expose the corruption in our government. I am truly surprised that there are so many people like my relatives who are somehow opposed and critical of hundreds of billions of dollars of waste, fraud, and outright theft of American taxpayer dollars that have been exposed so far in just one government agency, USAID, which has been a front for many CIA operations, both foreign and domestic. Holy crap. I can't wait until they get to auditing all the other agencies like the Pentagon, FEMA, Medicare, Education, Social Security, etc. By the way, parenthetically, speaking of FEMA, I think the head of FEMA just got fired because, in violation of an executive order, she funneled $59 million to New York City to house illegal migrants in luxury hotels. You can't make this stuff up. While we have homeless veterans on the street, and FEMA especially, while we have people still living in tents in North Carolina. So anyway, back to Josh. Like the Pentagon, FEMA, Medicare, Education, Social Security, etc., which are no doubt all rife with fraud, overspending, mismanagement, etc., plus auditing what the almost $200 billion sent to Ukraine was spent on, which now Zelensky is saying they only received $75 billion of. Yeah, so $125 billion. What's that among friends, huh? That was my words. Back to Josh. Tulsi will be doing similar type of work, cleaning up and holding the intelligence agencies accountable for their corruption, and Bobby, same in healthcare, and so many other great appointees like Kash Patel will clean up the FBI, Pam Bondi DOJ, Tom Holden deporting over 1 million illegals with criminal records, trying to find and rescue the more than 300,000 missing children that have been sadly exploited and trafficked across our border by the cartels, with the help and blind eye of the previous Biden-Harris border policies. Back to me for a second on that. Some people are freaking out. He's going to separate families. What do you think that happened to these 300,000 missing kids? Not only separated from their families, but all kinds of horrors likely happened to them. Maybe 300,000 is a hyperbolic number. It might be. If it's 3,000, if it's 3, it's 3 too many, but it's a whole lot more than 3, obviously. Back to Josh. I don't agree with everything Trump says or does, but so far I give him major credit and an 80% approval rating for doing more in his first month than most presidents like Biden have done in 4 years, and hope that Elon, Tulsi, Bobby, and Kash expose and get rid of and clean up all the deep state-controlled corrupt government agencies with complete transparency. Complete transparency. That deserved repeating. Complete transparency. I repeated it again. So we can all see how we've been duped, cheated, lied to, and brainwashed by corporate-owned media and politicians. So yes, there's still Josh. So yes, I support most of President Trump's policies, other than the no-win Israel-Palestine shit show and turning it into Gaza Largo Resort, and his drill baby drill fracking philosophy that sadly seems to be the only way we can keep driving our big cars and supply the USA's ever-increasing need, greed, and consumption of electricity and fossil fuels at the expense of Mother Earth. So Josh is being fair. He gave him an 80. He's not diehard MAGA. He's saying that there are things he disagrees with, and I disagree. Well, I did disagree with a lot of the Middle East stuff. Stuff that's coming out now is interesting. I saw in the news today that he was giving that after those 3 Israeli hostages, emaciated, looking like they just came out of Auschwitz, tortured, hung upside down. These Hamas people, I use the word people very, very loosely, they can't be negotiated with. They can't. So Trump, I saw something, I don't have the clip, I apologize for that, but it's out there in the public. He gave Hamas until Saturday noon to release all the hostages, or all hell will break loose, in his words. Anyway, back to the post that Josh did. This is the words of Ron Paul, who many of you who don't like Trump once supported. There's a rumbling in the heartland and anger is building. Harnessing that anger and converting it into positive and constructive energy could have favorable consequences beyond our imagination. It's time to become energized, not despondent, over the tragic mess that's been imposed upon us. So yeah, that's let's be 8 people watching, by the way. Hello to all 8 of you. Thank you very much. Glad to see you. But yeah, let's keep things positive. Let's respect each other. I guarantee now there's 9 people watching. I almost guarantee all 9 of you have somebody in your life, no matter where you are politically, that there's somebody close to you who disagrees with a lot of what you say. How do you navigate that? How do you navigate that? It is like walking a tightrope, because on the one hand, you don't want to tacitly agree when they come out with outrageous statements. You don't want to sit there silent and tacitly agree. And you don't want to go too far disagreeing, because you can really hurt your relationship. Again, I have had friends for decades that we just haven't spoken and pretty much since I publicly announced I was voting for Jill Stein in 2016. Boy, did I get raked over the coals for that. Called a misogynist. I was called a misogynist. And if you check Jill Stein's chromosomes, I guarantee she's a cis woman. Is that how you say it? CIS, whatever. Is it pronounced cis or is it kiss? I don't know. Anyway, Jill Stein's a woman, and I got called a misogynist for voting for her. What are you going to do? But speaking of keeping it positive. Well, not everybody's keeping it positive. And this is what a lot of people are seeing, and a lot of what they're basing their opinions upon. And let's hear what some of these people are saying.
Kind of the end of democracy, at least the end of our democracy. The return of Donald Trump to the White House could spell the end of democracy in America.
We could have a Trump presidency, and that would, in my opinion, be the end of democracy in this country.
I think that could be the end of our democracy, not to be too pointed about it.
Hillary Clinton said a couple of weeks ago that if he runs and wins, that could be the end of our democracy. Do you share that fear?
I do.
Are you going to stand by and watch this man destroy the democracy?
I hope he will be beaten, or else it's the end of democracy as we know it.
That'll be the end of democracy as we know it.
It's the end of democracy.
That is a recipe for the end of democracy.
The country is at risk as long as one of our 2 major parties is so committed to destroying our democracy.
January 6th is what it was a potential end of our democracy.
It would essentially mean the end of democracy in the United States of America, and that is not hyperbole.
This is democracy at stake.
We are at a defining moment in our democracy, and if we don't have voting rights, I don't know that we have a democracy.
In Georgia, they are trying to destroy democracy.
A systematic effort to dismantle democracy, not just voter suppression, but subversion.
We don't like who you voted for, so we're just going to give it to the.
Okay, that's about as much as I could stand. By the way, what Bernard was talking about in Georgia was they wanted to have people have voter ID. Now, you need an ID to get on an airplane. You need an ID to drive a car. You need an ID to open a bank account. You need an ID to basically function in this world on any kind of level. And they decided that demanding voter ID, which all that would do is ensure a free and fair election. Don't we want free and fair elections? That free and fair elections are important, that we really, really want to have leaders that we voted for. That's at least the beginning of a conversation. And we might disagree on so many other things, but could we at least start with one person, one vote? The Democrat Party is a sinking ship. It really is a sinking ship. And people who were once very supportive of it are getting out. The Democrat Party has a 31% approval rating. It's all over the news. You can look it up. 31%. So at least, I'm not saying leave the party. I'm not saying join us. I'm not saying to do anything. I am saying think for yourself. Think for yourself. But while thinking for yourself, at least consider the possibility that all these people who have stopped supporting the Democrats, maybe they're right. I don't mean right wing. I mean, maybe they're correct. You know, one thing that surprised me lately is CNN's kind of coming around. You know, it used to be that everything was unwatchable. You know, if you were left leaning, Fox News was and is unwatchable. If you're right leaning or possess any gray matter in your head, MSNBC has become unwatchable. And I say that as a person who watched MSNBC nightly. I used to watch Keith Olbermann and then Rachel Maddow, and the only times I'd watch Fox News was as a joke. And now it's the exact opposite. Fox News is far more truthful, in my opinion. Far more truthful than MSNBC. But CNN is starting to come around. They were pretty biased for a very long time, but now you're seeing stuff like this on CNN. Here we go. Let's hear this little discussion.
Describing what is currently the dumbest strategy in politics, which is Democrats taking the 20% side of every 80-20 issue in America. USAID, people want this pared down. They want it streamlined. They want to know where the money is going. Democrats have a meltdown. Today, Donald Trump signs executive order on keeping boys out of girls' sports. Democrats take the 20 side of that issue as well. All these issues, this is like Trump's superpower, finding a bunch of 80-20 issues, getting on the 80, and everybody who's sort of reflexively against him gets on the 20. And now the Democratic Party has like a 31% approval rating. This is why.
I don't.
And like I hope.
He must watch the Blathering Boomer, because he said that the Democrats have a 31% approval rating. Well, I am flattered. I am very flattered. Jay Marcus says that C-SPAN is far more trustworthy with the hearings, and I totally believe that. I totally agree. But man, it takes a commitment to watch anything on C-SPAN. I mean, you got to sit there through a long hearing, lots and lots of potatoes to get to the meat. So I must admit, I'm more of a Cliff Note kind of guy when it comes to C-SPAN. But yeah, if you want to see the unfiltered truth, I agree with Jay Marcus. Watch C-SPAN, absolutely. So we're talking about this USAID, and there is a lot of waste. There really is a lot of waste. And that's the thing. The people who are freaking out right now, who are saying that Elon Musk has no right to, all he's doing is auditing. And billions and billions, tens of billions, maybe hundreds of billions have been thrown away. This is our money. I pay a shitload of taxes. I don't like this. I don't like it, and you shouldn't either. Some of this money's going. So let's hear a perspective about a U.S. aid and where it is going in some cases. And we have
massive amounts of corruption and waste and just a lot of weird, shady shit with NGOs and where an enormous amount of money is going. And you're seeing someone look at this thing that is incredibly efficient, almost by design. And instead of saying like, well, this is just how it is, and this is how these politicians get funded, so let's just keep this thing going the same way it is and make some incremental changes to try to make people happy so we still get elected.
Right.
Instead of that, you're seeing a politician, a president who's coming in who can't get reelected, so he's just going ham. And he's just cleaning out everything. And people are freaking out. The same people that say we need radical change.
Right.
We need radical change. We've got corruption. We need radical change. Okay, well, here's your radical change. We don't need this, but you do.
Yeah.
The government does. They need oversight, and they haven't had that. And because of that, you're seeing this, not just waste. You could call it waste, but it's deeper. It's deeper than waste. It's corruption, and you're seeing that corruption get weeded out. I am hoping that this is successful and that it yields a benefit to the American people, to the working class people, to everybody, where they recognize like, hey, we can't just be spending all our fucking tax money on nonsense.
Right.
And it all should be done with a real clear understanding of getting results.
Right.
if that happens and that idea spreads across the country, because ideas spread and people change their minds. And, and sometimes it happens. One guy in the neighborhood will go, you know what, fuck this, I'm fed up. And then everybody like, yeah, I've been kind of thinking that too. I just didn't want to say it. And then people start talking, and then it's not a scary thing to discuss anymore.
That's right. So I couldn't agree with Joe Rogan more. And my presenting this is to get the conversation going. People aren't hearing the other side of it. They're hearing people like, well, I got to say, there are certain people who are really, really against being audited. And I dare say the people who are freaking out the hardest are the ones who have the most to hide. But there's one woman in Congress who is just absolutely batshit crazy. And let's see what she has to say about Elon Musk. And we're going to do a now and then. Actually, let's go to the then, because this is then. This was in 2018 after during Trump's first term. And she had this to say to the people who were listening to her.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
Mad Maxine. Talk about peaceful transition of power. I mean, what the hell? That's just, imagine if somebody on the right was saying that about Biden's cabinet. The blowback would be so hard, it would sail a boat around the world in 3 minutes. So that was Maxine Waters then. And how about Maxine Waters just this week?
He has turned over our country to Elon Musk. We didn't elect him. We didn't select him. We didn't ask for him, and we don't want him. And so, if he thinks we're pushovers, he got another thought coming. We are prepared to fight. We're prepared to fight.
Oh God, I can't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for subjecting you to all that, and I can't watch another second of her. I mean, talk about a divisive person. So she, and I apologize, I don't have the clip, but this has been all over the place, of Maxine Waters getting in the face of the security guard who was blocking the entrance to the Department of Education, because apparently several Congress people are freaking out about the Department of Education getting audited. Now, I am all for education, but there's some things that are happening in the Department of, well, for instance, I don't support, there's such a thing. There's something called a privilege walk, and I'm going to show you what a privilege walk looks like.
Police, because they felt you were suspicious, take one step backwards. You ever stop by the cops because they were suspicious of you? Take a step backwards. If you or your family ever inherited money or property, take a step forward.
Of course.
Money or property, take a step forward. If you come from a supportive family environment, take a step forward. If one of your parents was ever laid off or unemployed by choice, not by choice, take a step backward. You have a family member that was fired, not by choice, take a step backwards. All right, 5 more. If you were ever uncomfortable about a joke or statement you overheard related to your race, ethnicity, gender, appearance, or sexual orientation, but felt unsafe to confront the situation, take a step backwards.
So you get it. The whole idea is to have the privileged standing in the front and the people who need help standing in the back. And I'm sorry, that's a level of shaming. These kids can't help how they were brought up, what skin color they were born with. This is racism. Racism in reverse is still racism. Okay? People are losing people are losing job opportunities, college placements. I want the best and brightest. I'm sorry, I'm an ableist. I think that the best people deserve the most important positions. The people who work hard, who study, who apply themselves. That's who I want flying my airplanes. That's who I want performing surgeries. Hey, but I gotta say, there's a couple of things. Just while Josh Harvey gave his criticisms of Trump, I have my own, and it's true. I do not support renaming the Gulf of Mexico, and that's not just because my girlfriend's half Mexican. Trust me, I could think for myself when it comes to politics, and so could she. No, it's the Gulf of Mexico. I guess that's maybe not a boomer, maybe not a political thing, a boomer thing. I'm 70 years. It's been the Gulf of Mexico, and a long time before I had ears. Trump talks about how trans people shouldn't be in the military. I disagree on that. Somebody wants to have a sex change operation. That is their prerogative, as long as they stay out of women's sports, out of women's locker rooms, out of women's prisons. I support the choices people make. I've made some interesting choices in my own life. So if somebody who's had a sex change operation, whether it's female to male or male to female, and they want to be in the military and they're feeling, patriotic and want to serve their country, please do that. I mean, remember Bradley Manning, who became Chelsea Manning? I'm sure a lot of my progressive friends certainly remember that. And so I disagree with Trump on trans in the military. I disagree with him on the Gulf of Mexico, and that's the thing. I was having a conversation today, and a couple of friends of ours have a big issue with each other, because if you think about where 1 is totally woke and 10 is believing in conspiracy theories and wears a QAnon t-shirt, that's a really hard thing to navigate. Get towards the middle. There's people I disagree with in my life, but we're kind of like 3 and 6. We try to recognize the truth in what each other is saying. And I guess I've said this at the end of all my recent podcasts. Not everybody's right all the time. Trump is certainly not right all the time. And even the blathering boomer, the king of the blatherverse, is not right all the time. And I like to admit it when I'm wrong. So, I like to admit when I'm wrong, but that being said, I hate being wrong. But, we're not always right. So the person you're talking to who disagrees with you, not everything they say is nonsense. If all they ever watch is MSNBC, it could be a tough nut to crack. But try to get a couple of, don't take the extreme opposite position. You know who mastered this? You know who understand we got to be at the 5 or the 6? Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton got elected on being a moderate. It was a brilliant move on his part. There was the divisiveness in this country in 1992, and Bill Clinton picked up a saxophone, went on Arsenio Hall, and said a lot of moderate shit that got him elected. And honestly, I think he was actually one of the great presidents. His personal fetishes aside. Personal fetishes very much aside. He balanced the budget. He actually balanced the budget. So why is it okay for Clinton to balance the budget, which apparently was met with a lot of respect, and not okay for Trump, with the help of Elon Musk, balancing the budget? The interest on the debt is about to become, if it hasn't already become, more than our $1 trillion defense budget. This is not sustainable, and there is tremendous waste. Tremendous waste. I agree with every word of what Joe Rogan said. It's not just waste. A lot of it is corruption and theft. So let's clean it up. For lack of a better word, let's drain the swamp, and let's pay attention to the people who doth protest too much, because they're the ones that really, really need to be audited. I guess I'll close. Let me see if I have my Twitter thing still open with a few of my bookmarks. So first of all, if you didn't see the Super Bowl, the crowd kind of definitely stated what it wanted to say about both Donald Trump and Taylor Swift. So that's what they had to say. So Donald Trump got wildly cheered. Taylor Swift got resoundingly booed. Some say it's for political reasons. Some say they're sick of just seeing her face at football games. For whatever reason, she had a big wake-up call. And if you read her lips, she said, "What's going on?" When she heard the boos. I have more, if I'm not mistaken. This guy, though, I'm going to kind of close the show with this guy. This guy has a lot to say, and we're going to hear what he has to say. And let's hear from this guy. I have no idea who he is, but I like him.
Dude, this US aid thing is so much worse than people realize. Do y'all remember when people were angry at Elon Musk for buying Twitter for $40 billion? Because he could have solved world hunger with that money. Okay? Keep that same energy. Okay? We were supposed to have sent like somewhere around $200 billion to Ukraine. Remember? Remember all those little packages? Well, even Zelensky says that only about half of it even got there. So there's $100 billion that's just floating around somewhere. That could have solved world hunger. But your government was so inefficient and so corrupt, and you don't even care about it? In fact, you're more mad that we stopped U.S. aid for a minute and paused it so we can figure out what the flip all of our money's going to, bro? This is not a normal response. Your reaction is being manipulated by the media. It has to be, because you would be mad under any other circumstances. Imagine your dad left you a business that used to make you $100 a month, and now that business is losing you like $10,000 a month. You would go in and go, what's going on? And it's like, pretend it's a mattress company. And you look at the expenditures and you're like, well, these aren't springs and cotton and mattress sheets and things like that. No, we're buying cement in Dubai for 10 times the price that anybody else ever paid. What's going on? And then one of the managers comes up to you and goes, hey, you're not supposed to have access to this warehouse. What are you even doing in here? You would be like, I'm getting scammed so hard. Pause everything. Everybody's going to jail, bro. Meanwhile, Maui, North Carolina, and California are all burning down, and we never seem to have enough money for that. Hell, Flint, Michigan's water costs like $1.5 billion, and it would be fixed, bro. We give Ethiopia more than that every year. And then you start looking at all the politicians that have been connected to this thing, and you wonder, why are these guys yelling so much? And you look into how they're receiving their revenue. Oh, it goes out in USAID, it does a little cool loop-de-loop dance, and then comes back to their families. Oh, well, Ross, if it was this bad, the news would have told us about it. Nope, because the other thing USAID is funding is all of the freaking media, bro. They are deciding what you guys think, which is why all of them have made you all think that we're the bad guys this whole time. They knew that if we won, we would see this and cut off their funding. There's a movie called The Truman Show with Jim Carrey, where basically everything around him is like a controlled environment and things like that. If you found out that all of the same opinions that you've had from the media for the last 10 years were funded and created for you to have those opinions, wouldn't you pump the brakes a little bit and start thinking maybe the right-wingers aren't so bad?
I got to replay those last few seconds because, seriously, consider the possibility that you've been lied to. Consider it. I'm going to just go back a few seconds here.
Out that all of the same opinions that you've had from the media for the last 10 years were funded and created for you to have those opinions, wouldn't you pump the brakes a little bit and start thinking maybe the right-wingers aren't so bad? We voted for this so we can see all the leeches that are sucking the money out of all of our company, bro. Join the team.
So I have no idea who that guy is because somebody else posted that video, but he tells the truth. And again, consider the possibility. Politico got over $8 million from USAID. Why? Why? You know, all this money being wasted, and we have veterans homeless living in the streets. Well, illegal migrants are living in luxury hotels. There's something wrong with this picture. Something wrong with this picture. I'm not a bad guy. I'm not a right-winger. Right-winger doesn't mean you're a bad guy, but I'm not a right-winger and I'm not a bad guy. I want all the same things people, that I wanted when I was a hippie living in Berkeley. I want clean air. I want clean water. I want a government I could at least trust a little bit, just a little teeny bit, just a little bit, instead of none, instead of zero. Don't we all want that? Don't we? So the fact of the matter is, and I guess what drew so many of us going full circle and getting back to Bernard Sanders, Bernie was going to shake. We thought Bernie was in there to shake things up. Bernie was the renegade candidate. Bernie was a disruptor. And we honestly believed he could beat Trump. And I didn't know what to make of Trump in 2016. Excuse me. He was my landlord growing up. I never liked the guy. I was walking my dog one day during the primaries, and I live near Cal State Fullerton, and a lot of fraternities around here. I'm walking my dog, and these frat boys pull up in a car, open the window, and yell to me, "Trump is king." So me being from Brooklyn, I did what a good person from Brooklyn would do. I dropped my pants, bent over, turned around, patted myself on the butt with a nice big shiny moon, and said, "Yeah, and here's his kingdom." That's how I felt about Trump in 2016. But now we need a disruptor, because where we are right now cannot sustain itself. And we dodged a bullet with this last election. I know people I love, people I like, people I care for will disagree with that. But we literally, when Trump dodged that bullet in Butler, Pennsylvania, the whole country dodged a bullet. If Kamala Harris was elected, this would have gone on unchecked. And this is just an audit. They're just asking questions. But the people who have a lot to hide want to hang on to it. They want that money to keep flowing. And don't get me started about the trail of dollars that went to the Biden family from Ukraine. That's for another time. But I try to be the voice of reason. I try not to be less than 3 or more than 7 in the scale. I try to be moderate. And really, if I have any purpose in this podcast, other than eventually telling stories about prison, which I really hope to get back to, but I'll tease you with this. Because the opening line of the story goes like this: like so many things in life, this all started because of a hot tuna concert. So I'll leave you with that for now. But anyway, that's it for now. Be kind to each other. Listen to each other. Maybe somebody you're arguing with actually has a point that's worth considering in both directions. So that's it. That's it for now. God, these long goodbyes. Is this a Jewish goodbye or an Irish goodbye? I'm not sure which one. But whichever one it is, you walk out the room and it's over. So for now, I'm just going to say, I'll see you next Tuesday. And the blather. The boomer has blathered. Peace out. Thank you, all 6 of you who are still watching, and thank you for the few dozen who will watch this in the aftermath. Good night, folks.